Hi guys, it is indeed with a heavy heart that I welcome you to the APAT Show this evening. Our community has lost a rock in recent days with the loss of Ger Smith. We are hurting just as you are. Ger, for many, was the life and soul of APAT, and of course we commiserate with Ger Jr. and Marie, and with any of you guys who are still struggling to come to terms with his passing. We are going to celebrate Ger and his involvement with APAT in a future episode of the APAT Show once his funeral has completed. But for now, let's just take a moment to remember. Ger Smith. Well, guys, look, I'm determined not to be on a downer tonight. We shouldn't be on a downer. Ger wouldn't want us to be on a downer. He was always the life and soul of the party. So, with that said, the last week or so has been tough.
Yeah, it's not been an easy one when the news came out of the blue. And I've spoken to lots of players during the week, and everyone's just been trying to get their heads around it all. And as I say, obviously, our thoughts are very much with Ger Jr. and Marie and the family and everybody very close to Ger. It's just very, very sad. Very, very sad times indeed.
No, absolutely. Did you know Ger well, Natalie? Your paths would have crossed many times, I would imagine.
Yeah. No, I didn't. I didn't have the pleasure of knowing him personally, but obviously I recognise him from APAT events, and our paths, yeah, like you say, will absolutely have crossed. But I think for me, as an outsider of his close circle of friends, just watching everybody's reaction as the news unfolded this week, I was really overcome with just how much love and affection there was for him, and how deeply affected everybody was by the news, and just the wonderful stories that everybody had to share with him. And you can't. He was loved. It's as simple as that. And I just think it was a real privilege to be able to witness everybody's sharing of their private moments with him and grieving his loss in such an open way. It just goes to show what an unbelievable character he obviously was.
Yeah, no, he was absolutely that. And the feelings that you've seen coming out over the last week or so have been very, very genuine. And, that's rare. That's sort of rare in these times, particularly with so many falling over the last year. It's nice. It's nice to see. It's special to see that Ger meant so much to so many. Now, as I mentioned, a couple of seconds ago, we are going to do a special on Ger, his involvement with APAT. We want the stories to be heard. So, we're going to organize that. We're going to have, some close friends on. We're going to tell some stories. Who knows? We might even crack it open a Corona or two. No fucking lime, right? That bit's important. So, that will happen. Leigh, right? We're determined that will happen. But I think we just want, family and friends to just get past the funeral, right? I think the funeral is on the 28th. So that period between now and then, it's going to be tough for everyone. And I think, we want to come back, talk about Ger. We want to do it with a smile on our face, because again, that was Ger. That's the way he'd want it to have been done. And that is the way we will do it. So with that in mind, and with that to come, Leigh, we've got, a lot of poker taking place tonight. We've had a lot taking place during the week. We didn't have an APAT show last weekend. We just didn't think it just basically wasn't something we wanted to do, having that news so fresh in our minds. But can you just maybe update us in terms of what's happening tonight and where the leaderboards are and stuff like that?
Yeah, I sure can. Well, I don't know how to put this to you, Des, but this could be an expensive week for us.
Oh my God.
I know
no downer, I said, Leigh. No downer.
I know it's tough.
Straight
week,
away
yeah,
in there.
This could cost us a bit this week. So last week, Tony Ross finished top of the table. He was on step 4, so he was playing for $55 tickets. He finished top of the table. That cost us That cost us 3 tickets. That cost us $165. Pete Wigglesworth was on step 3. He got 2 tickets. That cost us as well. So
Wiggle Vision. I miss Wiggle Vision as a very quick side note there.
So, but what it does mean is that means Tony is the first one who's made it to step 5. And this week he's playing for $109 tickets.
Awesome. How's he doing?
And Pete Wigglesworth is playing for $55 tickets. Tony hasn't cashed all week.
Yes. Sorry, Tony. We're only joking. We're calling for you, really.
Until tonight. He's currently 5th of 10 remaining in the main event. That might mean he might get into the top 20.
Great, but don't worry, we can fix that in the back office, Lee.
Now that pesky Wigglesworth, right? He cashed in all 4 of the first 4 tournaments of the week, right? I'm not happy about this, honestly. $55 tickets he's playing for.
Right,
honestly, we've only got a small budget. He's also cashed in 1 tonight, so he's had 7 cashes this week.
He fantastic. He deserves it, Lee.
He is top of the table. I can't see how he's going to get caught. So it looks like we may be sending 3 lots of $55 tickets.
That's happy days.
To Pete. Gary Young was second on the leaderboard. He's on step 3, so that's going to cost us a couple of $33 tickets. Other than that, though, most of the rest of the top 20 are $5.50, Des. So we're all right after that. We're okay. But yeah, it's a bit painful. So tonight we've got the usual Sunday night. It's 4 tournaments on the go. Sunday deep stack. Well, that's heads up at the moment. Stefan Reisenberger and Kevin O'Donnell are playing heads up for the $222 up top. That started with 82 players. Smashed the guarantee in that. The Sunday main event, $2,500 guarantee. Don't even know why we bother putting that on there anymore. $3,552 in the prize pool for that. It's paying top 20. As I say, we've got 9 left in that. Tony Ross is now 4th in chips. Oh well.
You're not supposed to anti-rail, Lee.
No,
nice,
it's all right. It's next week. We've got a Bockham, Lee. Right? It's next week.
Yeah.
We're fine.
So,
this week is fine.
So the trouble is as we keep getting told by Yanni and the guys. I mean, Tony's not even the best player in Ilfracombe. I mean, I don't quite know how this is happening. It's just it's incredible.
Where's Ilfracombe? I've never heard of that place.
It's on the coast. It's on the.
Is it south?
It's up there somewhere.
So,
okay.
Well, I can say that, but obviously you're up in Lytham St Anne's, so you might not necessarily be able to say that.
Don't ask Des where places are. He still thinks
I'm Irish.
He still thinks Pontefract's in Wales.
Can't believe Tom Jones is not the single most important male figure to the Pontefract youth. I can't believe it.
Absolutely not. So in the main event, there is $870 up top tonight. So fantastic prize pool for that. The PLO main event, we missed the guarantee by $10. 1 player. No. We'd have hit that.
So that's my fault. Sorry.
There's $1,000 in the prize pool for that. We've got top 6 are getting paid. There's 8 left, but we've got the likes of Gary Young, James Woodruff, Richard King in playing in that. And then finally tonight, started at 9 o'clock, the Turbo Knockout, $500 guarantee. We've got $890 in the prize pool for that one. 89 runners. It's paying the top 14, and we're down to 36 runners in that. So loads going on.
Fantastic. Lots of stuff happening. I've just to give a flavour, right? Because we don't like to show too much poker on this show, as you know. But just to give a flavour of the main event, we've just reached the final table. I see Tony Ross is sitting there proudly. He's also sitting rather proudly in the chat box. I think we've only got 2 people watching tonight, Lee.
Smug.
It's Tony Ross and Mr. Wigglesworth. They're both chasing the dollar.
Tony's Ace is in the chat as well.
There's lots of people in there.
Ace did say he was going to pop in and say hello quickly before he's back at work for tomorrow.
Triplin is there as well, and he'll be wanting to talk about the football, right? Some big stuff happening on the football front that we're going to discuss very, very shortly tonight. Tony Ross is there with Evening All. Evening to you, Tony. Ace is, of course, there. Evening All. And there's a bunch of others. Mr. Wigglesworth. Evening, guys. Evening to you, Peter. And Tris says, I think the anti-rail Bach will work. Tony will win the main now. That's the way it works, you see?
Ooh. Yeah.
That's the way it works.
Well, just to confirm in the deep stack, that's just concluded. Stefan Reisenberger from Austria finished in first, picking up $222. Kevin O'Donnell from Ireland, $143 for second. And Renan Garcia from Brazil was third. So well done to you guys.
I just can't get an Irish player over the line, Lee. I've been trying since the WCOP.
I know.
We just can't get one to the top podium step. Just won't happen.
Quite.
We were close in the World Championships, weren't we? Did one not come like fourth or fifth?
Well,
that was one of the nights I was on, I think.
There's one from Pontefract that we were claiming.
Yeah. You've got a runner in the PLO, Des. Simone De Muro, who's 5th of 8. So,
Simone, I'm sorry to say that just with those words, Lee has lessened your chances of winning this tournament. Just with those words. But we will see. We will see. Erzy is in as well. The Warden of the Northeast has arrived with one of those big wool coats, that they walked across the wall with. I miss Game of Thrones. I have to say, I miss that. But we've got a bit of Game of Thrones in the football. We're going to come back to that. Before we talk football, maintaining the poker theme, Lee.
We are technically a poker show.
Well, I mean, we don't want to talk too much about it, right? You don't want to too much of a good thing, not good for the audience. But we pushed out a ton of Orbit content this week.
Didn't we just?
Tell us about it. Tell us about it, because we've got one of the stars of the Orbit above your head as I look.
we sure have. Yes. So we were on Orbit episode 10. Considering I think we did our first Orbit. Was it about August time or something like that? Maybe it was a little bit before that last year. It's how we've got to episode 10. I don't quite know, but yes. So we released Orbit episode 10, which was on the anniversary of Black Friday. So 10 years ago that Black Friday hit in America, and everyone saw all those messages up on the website saying you can't play on here anymore. And
that's right.
And then everything came out about Full Tilt and everything. So we had a cracking lineup on the show. We had Blair Hinkle, who was a online player that had $1.2 million in his Full Tilt account. He just won an F-Tops about a couple of months prior. So we had Eric Holreiser, who was just about to join PokerStars as one of their senior execs. So he was on. We had Mike Mattisau, who was a Full Tilt ambassador at the time. Very quiet. Mike didn't have a lot to say.
Very laid back, Lee. He was laid back, which was ironic, really, because he was in fact laid back.
Literally and metaphorically.
It literally was in bed with Mattisau. Yes, it was. And we had Steve Rudder, who's a media guy who was heavily kind of involved in now the legislation side of the game. So really fascinating panel. So really good hours worth. And then Natalie Bromley, she literally flipped through her contact list and pulled out a couple of contacts to put onto the Orbit Extra for. So who did you have on the show, Natalie?
Just, anybody would really heard of. Some player called Daniel Negreanu. I'm not really sure anybody have heard of him. And some Brit pro, James Dempsey.
Did they play it like the Grosvenor Blackpool or something?
I think that's where my paths first crossed with him. I think they just like Grosvenor, like just regs, and I don't think nobody will really have heard of them.
I'll tell you what, it was a pretty spectacular week of content. The Orbit Extra was fantastic. The Orbit was fantastic. I've got a little teaser here, right? Let's run about 2 minutes of this. Ooh. This is our lead into the Orbit Extra, which also shows, ironically, the teaser for the Orbit. So hope you guys enjoy this and then go away and watch those episodes. They were pretty cool. Let's do this.
Hello and welcome to the Orbit Extra, the show that puts you in the driving seat with live and immediate reaction to the very latest episode of the Orbit. I'm your host, Natalie Bromley, and this week the Orbit team have been marking the 10th anniversary of Black Friday and reminiscing on what happened that fateful day 10 years ago and exactly what the implications were of the collapse of Full Tilt Poker. Very shortly, we will be introducing you to our very special panel for the live Q&A this evening. But for those of you who have not yet seen episode 10 of The Orbit, here's a sneak preview.
I had 1.2 million in my Full Tilt account.
It was, how does payment processing work? How does this happen? What kind of segregation do the sites use?
I was wondering, wait a minute, I'm just about to join this company.
Right.
What have I just done, right?
Say, I didn't run anything. Oh, Ray run everything. That's a fucking lie.
I'm never going to see that money is basically what I would feel like. And a few days of just depression, crying at night. Like,
I was writing crazy stuff at the time. I was writing 50 best gin rummy tips, like anything that.
Within days, probably, I was on a flight to the Isle of Man that ultimately became pretty much a one-way ticket.
Everybody knows they should just keep the players' funds separate from, the business side of things, because why wouldn't you?
And I left it online. My joke of it all was like, well, I'd rather have my money on Full Tilt than on Bank America. I'm like, Full Tilt makes $2.5 million a day, is worth $4 billion. I'm like, this is way safer than putting it in the bank.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode number 10 of The Orbit.
Excellent stuff. Well, before we bring our panel in this evening, let's put you in control. Those of you who are watching this stream live, you have a chat box. We want to hear your memories of Black Friday. Did you guys have any money locked up in Full Tilt? But most importantly, let us have your questions to the panel. And let's bring them in. I am joined this evening by two superstars of the game, both of whom were right in the heart of Black Friday. Welcome to the Orbit Extra, Mr. Daniel Negreanu and Mr. James Dempsey.
There we go, guys. Welcome to the Orbit Extra, Mr. Daniel Negreanu and Mr. James Flushy Dempsey. Natalie, that was excellent. How did it feel sort of to interview, those two guys who were both very much in the mix on Black Friday, as you quite rightly said?
Yeah, they were. I think it was a really surreal moment, but I was quite surprised at how much I just went into like default mode as soon as we started recording. And I realized, as Lee will vouch for it, I was really quite scared at the beginning of the show. Not because the main reason being that the Orbit team, the Orbit's a great show, and I've got to say, episode 10 that you produced was absolutely spectacular. Congratulations. It was a brilliant episode. And when, I'm not a professional media journalist. I'm not, this is just something that I do because for some reason people ask me to do it. And it's just fun. And I've got to stop taking calls from you guys. It was more, don't cock this up. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that was what was the nerve-wracking thing of it. It's like, don't make an idiot of yourself. Don't be starstruck. Don't produce something that's really shit when the guys behind the scenes have worked so hard to get this out there. But I think just the minute that we started rolling and I did my introduction, I was like, oh no, this is fine. And then it was just an absolute pleasure. And Lee, before we went, about an hour before we went live, Lee was texting me and he was telling me this great story about Dave Grohl when he was playing at the White House. And he was basically saying, like, don't ever let nerves, what's the word I'm looking for? Don't let nerves overtake you. So don't let them eliminate the enjoyment from an experience for you. And I think that really rang true. So it was, when am I ever going to get to do that again? It was really good fun. And actually, you know what? They were great. You should listen to it, guys, because they were really, really spectacular to listen to.
Oh, fantastic. To be honest, we had our episode 11 first production meeting about 2 hours ago. So we might be getting in touch with you shortly. And if you thought 10 was cool, wait till you hear what we're doing for 11.
Although whether we can actually beat Daniel Negreanu doing an impression of Mike Mattisau doing an impression of Howard Lederer. Yeah, the three of them together that was just brilliant.
It was definitely something else. It really was. But it was more, I think it was more taking away from the occasion of it. It was fascinating to hear. We got to hear this week 6 individuals who were personally affected and right in the middle of Black Friday. And number one, I can't believe it's been 10 years since that happened. But just to hear the insiders and the people who were the spokespeople about it and the people who were making the changes and driving the change that was needed it was a real privilege to hear those stories. It really was. Yeah,
there was some high-powered and really interesting people on there with big stories. Interestingly, Yanni is saying in the chat box, does that mean I better take my $11 off of Party Poker like immediately? I think you're okay.
Always.
I think what Daniel or James, what they both agreed on the extra, and the really cool thing about the extra, what makes it different, is we look at the original program and we comment on that, right? So we talk about the stuff that was in the original program, and that question came up, and I think Daniel in particular said, look, as long as you are keeping money on your poker account that is not life changing to you, that ultimately is, if you're a rec player, certainly, fun money, right? You'd be prepared to lose it. As long as you can afford to lose it, then it's fine, leave it there. But if you've got sort of 10 times, 20 times your bankroll sitting there, then why would you do that? Don't do it.
Do you know, that always really struck me listening to Blair's story, really, and it was one of those where, and this is perhaps stereotypical of poker players, but he won the F-Tops in February, and Black Friday happened in April, and there was a part of me that was like, what were you doing just sitting with $1.2 million in a poker site? Man, withdraw that money.
What I thought was interesting was, so a couple of weeks ago, obviously Vanessa Kay won big, and I'm sure it was the following week she was back on Twitter slagging off her bank, because saying, I need to bank with somebody else because I'm trying to withdraw this money, and the bank are being all funny about this, that, and the other. I'm going to move banks. So clearly she was getting her money off the site.
Hell yeah.
Listen, I hope she said, I'm going to walk in with 4 attaché cases and I need $5 bills, right? I want $1.5 million in $5 bills. Don't mark those bills, right? I'll be watching. I hope that's what she said, and they're a little challenged by that, perhaps.
But it's interesting how even so somebody is, like Daniel is just, don't keep too much money on the site. And Blair said the same in the show. I don't do that anymore. I don't treat a poker site as if it's a bank. Which is that line from Mike is just great. Why wouldn't I keep it on full tilt? Full Tilt was earning, what did he say? 2 million,
2.5 million a day.
2.5 million a day, and it's worth 4 billion. I mean, that's safer than any bank.
Yeah.
I mean, his words.
What I thought was equally as surprising from Blair as the fact that he left that money in there for 6-8 weeks without thinking too much about it was the fact that when he went to the website, saw the DOJ emblems on those sites, which meant he couldn't reach his money. He was pretty unperturbed about that. He felt that was going to be okay. It's the Department of Justice, the money will be there. I'll get my money back. It took him how long to get the money back? 2 years, something like that.
Oh, it was later. That was 2014.
It's longer than that.
Yeah.
So 3 years,
3.5
to get the money. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Crikey, O'Reilly.
Whereas the likes of Steve Ruddock was straight away, literally, what was it, bang, transferring somebody's money and
Well, James Dempsey said that to us on the show, didn't he? He was like, when the news broke, one of the benefits of being at this side of the pond was that they were all at DTD playing just the regular nightly tournaments, and the news broke. Now, obviously, most poker players, particularly those who are playing at those levels, are not getting out of bed till 1-2 o'clock in the afternoon, and the news broke at 9 in the morning. So by the time most American poker players were getting out of bed, it was like 5 or 6 hours old. Because they were in DTD and they saw it straight away. Literally, Dempsey took his money out straight away, and apparently his laptop was just being passed around DTD. Yeah. So all the Brit players who were in DTD that night got their money out on that night. So, we were quite lucky being on this side of the
absolutely.
pond.
But of course, Full Tilt continued to operate for a period of time in Europe. So yes, their US facing site went down. They continue to operate. It's just like, it was insane.
All true.
But as Daniel pointed out when he said, so it was okay for you, and Daniel said, well, no, it wasn't okay, because
of course it wasn't,
because they didn't have your money.
That's true. That is true.
And he made the point. He said, it was the fact that actually they've been spending your money on other stuff. I mean, it wasn't
so
the
they
case
had some money. I think, from memory, they had balances totaling over 400 million, and they had 60 million in the bank. So
no, it was a bit less than that. I think they had the play balances was 300 million, and their bank balance on day of Black Friday was 46 million.
There you go.
That's how they did it.
So the people behind James Dempsey were pulling their money out because effectively, there was some cash in the bank, but that was going to quickly reach a point, and it quickly reached a point.
It's like a run on the banks, isn't it? It's like everybody queuing up, going, I want my money out. Now I think it ended up costing Stars, was it 360 million in the end, something like that, to clear it all in the end, something like that.
Something in those.
Yeah. So
it was something like that. It was, I think, one of the most fascinating things that I did about it, because clearly in the run up to the episode airing, I had to do quite a bit of research and just to make sure that I knew what I was talking about and that I was prepared for the interview, for the Q&A, sorry, not the interview. And I think back in 2011, I'd only been playing poker for a couple of years. I started around the beginning of 2009. And my recollection back in the day was that Full Tilt caused Black Friday. But actually, that's not the case at all. Black Friday just genuinely came out of the blue because it was the Department of Justice who had just sent the indictments because of the breach of the 2006 regulations that Tilt and the American card rooms had tried to get around. And it was only because of Black Friday that they figured out that
there's actually a whole load. There's a whole load more to it because the actual legislation that got put through in the first place got snuck in. It was attached to a last. It was a credit card something bill or something.
It got
it got sneakily attached into the very last bill at some reading somewhere and got pushed through. And there was a long period of time where effectively the online sites were illegally, trading effectively on what they were doing, but they were just going with it and seeing what's going to happen. Party Poker and one of the others pulled out quite quickly.
Absolute.
Once it went, that was
Absolute went under.
Yeah, it was Party Poker and somebody else carried, said straight away, we're going to leave. We're exiting the US market because we basically can't, we can't operate there anymore. And the others carried on going. But yeah, ultimately, if Black Friday hadn't have happened, I wonder whether the Full Tilt situation would have ever come to light. I'm not sure whether it would.
Yeah, it's definitely a question that I was, all the time that I was doing my background reading for the show, that's definitely the question that I was asking. And I was talking to a couple of friends who remember, but interesting, some of my friends who I were talking to, they remember the Black Friday the same way that I did, that they kept thinking that Full Tilt had caused it. And it was the Department of Justice had realized that Full Tilt wasn't really a proper poker site. It wasn't regulated well enough and it wasn't following the steps it was supposed to, it was a Ponzi scheme effectively. And I don't think it will have done, Leigh, because part of my reading, I think a lot of it was they were not ring fencing player funds from operational funds, and there was all sorts of, I guess they were just hoping that the money would keep circulating and they would always have enough to pay rake and they always have enough to pay out big deposits.
They were making profit. If you take away you take away their excess in their spending, the actual business itself was making money.
But I think
they were overdoing their what they were trying
their bonuses were massive.
I think, guys, they were on borrowed time one way or another because they were regulated by Alderney, right? And I was with Skybet at the time. I was the head of commercial for betting and gaming at Skybet back then. And no, I was the head of poker. I'd moved, but I had been the head of commercial for betting and gaming, and I dealt with Alderney for Skybet, and they were very officious. But I think they did a really shit job on Full Tilt. But at a point, an audit would have almost certainly reached a conclusion that actually they weren't operating the business, they weren't separating customers' funds. It had to be found out. There was just no way that it could have gone on for too much longer.
I think towards the end as well, there was one of the points that I was reading that there was some regulatory trigger that came in that meant that they couldn't satisfy the benchmark that they needed to be able to withdraw money from players' banks. So players were depositing and they're saying, like, I'm going to deposit $100 on the site, but they didn't have the ability to take that money out of the bank account. So what they were doing, that they were just flashing up the numbers and effectively crediting their bank balances, but without ever taking the money. Now, I think even if you say, well, a lot of players are not going to open up to that because they're going to be like, great, I'm getting free money. At some point, somebody's going to figure that out. Because effectively, all of these players were playing with play money on the site, thinking that it was real money, because they were just, is it quantitative easing? Is that what it's called, Leigh, in the accountancy world? They were doing the poker equivalent of that. They were just adding figures to the site and never taking the money out of players.
Basically, quantitative easing is basically putting additional cash into the
circulation. So this poker equivalent of that, I guess. So it was I've got to say, it was one of those. Listen, guys, anybody who's listening to this show, whenever Leigh Wiltshire or Des Duffy ever ring you and say we need you for an hour, just times that by about 10, because that's usually the amount of time that it takes to do the stuff that they need. But I've got to say, I'm really glad that this particular topic came up, because doing all of the research for it before the show was just super interesting. And I think it's something that I would encourage all players, even if you're only a recreational player, to read up on it. There's so much material out there now, because it's just been the 10-year anniversary, because it will teach you about what happens in the background of these sites, what payment processes are, how these poker sites ring fence your money, and it will protect you as a player to put you in a position where you shouldn't be victim to this, or if it does happen again, you are very well placed to protect yourself. So that is my takeaway from the show. Fantastic. Please read up on it.
Well, what I would just say is it won't take you 10 times as long unless you are as professionally conscious as Natalie is, to ensure she does a good.
That's right.
Does a good job. So.
But having said what Leigh has said, the good news for all of you is that Natalie's 45 minutes clearly runs to the end of tonight's show now, because she understands it's not 45. I'm only joking.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
So 2 additional things. One, guys, if you want to see those episodes, and why wouldn't you? Because they're very entertaining, I have to say, and you'll learn from first point of view.
Is
amazing.
Fantastic.
It's very. Believe as much of what he tells you as you choose, but
yeah,
but it's well worth it.
Picture Humpty Dumpty after he's fallen off the wall, right? That's Mike Mattisau, and he is heartbroken by the whole thing, and he goes off on several little steam trains. So do go and watch it, and you just need to go to Twitch Poker here on Facebook. So just go to the Twitch Poker group on Facebook. Both of the episodes are there. You could do that pretty quickly. But outside of that, right, Black Friday was last week's scandal. That was last week. This week's scandal is football. What in the holy mother of God? Natalie, tell us, what do you understand has gone on today?
Oh, my Lord. Well, it's all come out of the blue this afternoon, just as we were celebrating. It feels quite ironic, actually. Just as we were watching some FA Cup semi-finals this afternoon and enjoying that fantastic domestic competition that is much loved by everybody, news started breaking that a selection of top European clubs in Spain and England and... Italy, thank you, had all signed up to join a breakaway Super League, which would take them out of their domestic leagues and into basically a closed shop. And the most concerning aspect of this being that once they're in, that will be them done for however long the Super League lasts. There will be no relegation from it. There will be no promotion to it. And these teams will effectively play each other every single year for top honours. Came out of the I say out of the blue. There's been talk about European Super Leagues and doing something, the next initiative to make a higher Premier League, or rehash the Champions League, whatever we're going to do for some time now. But this has probably been the strongest move towards this, and I haven't seen it yet, but apparently there was an announcement at 9:30 tonight that the affected clubs are going to sign up to it. Met quite rightly with widespread condemnation at the highest order, by the way. I think UEFA and the Premier League have both issued statements. President Macron of France and Boris Johnson, obviously UK Prime Minister of both, they've put out announcements saying that they strongly condemn it. And there is talk at the moment that the players who play for those clubs will face worldwide bans. So if you play for one of the clubs that plays in this new Super League, you won't be in a World Cup, you won't be in the UEFA Championships, you won't be in the African Nations Cup, you won't be able to play in any of those. So, yeah, Des, that is how we know it as yet.
Wow.
It's hit us this afternoon.
I tell you, I'm just quickly looking at Twitter. So nothing yet, but I'm seeing somebody's tweeted, apparently from BBC Sports. I'm not looking at BBC Sports, so I don't know if this is true, but they're expecting an announcement at 10:30, which
10:30,
which was 5 minutes ago. So one would have expected it to have happened. Gary Lineker tweeted 23 minutes ago, looking forward to the compromise with UEFA and the clubs, which I sense is what this has been designed for, a power play. That's interesting. So, a lot of the football timeline that I'm reading is a lot of unhappy fans. There's a lot of fans of United and Liverpool and the other clubs. And you can see the emblems on screen to see who the English clubs are. They're not happy with the possibility that their clubs might be abandoning domestic leagues, domestic cups, and all of that stuff. Not happy at all. So we just have to see how this one plays out. But it's a horribly big play, and I don't doubt for a minute that it's been designed to add a great deal of noise around UEFA's announcement tomorrow of the proposed new Champions League structure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what we've had this before. I think Asa put this on Facebook earlier on. Asa, I think it was you who said it. Basically, every single time there is a new structure proposed for the Champions League or there's a big announcement, this topic always comes up again, and it's exactly what you said it is, Des. It's power play, and it doesn't surprise me in some respects that this has happened this season, because fans haven't been integral to the sport this season. We've all been away from the teams for an entire year. We've not been able to see any games. And I think televised football has just become more and more the norm. And, it doesn't surprise me that this has happened when it has, because for some seasons now, the fan at the 3 p.m. live fan who buys his season ticket and gets his pie and his coffee on the game every Saturday afternoon is bottom of the priority list when it comes to what football owners look for these days. And this is just the final kick in the teeth. And I think this will quite rightly set off some kind of fan revolt, because I think, Des, enough is enough.
Yeah, and I completely concur with that. One thing that shouldn't be lost sight of here is that a lot of the organisations, UEFA, the Premier League, Sky, a lot of the sort of organisations who might be afraid of change are coming out and they're using the greed word, right? It's greed, it's greed, it's greed. And it might be greed, but the Premier League, UEFA, Sky, it's all about greed, right? They were the previous greedy inheritors of football, and a European Super League would be the next greedy inheritors of. There is nobody without sin from an organisational point of view within football when it comes to greed. I think the people who are going to lose out are the fans and the clubs further down the pyramid.
That's the concern.
I hope it doesn't happen, but ultimately, I'd quite like to hear what they have to say before casting all of the big stones. They should be given a chance to confirm that there's no promotion and relegation. They need to be able to confirm what they're going to do with the money, all of that sort of stuff. We sort of need to understand what the plan is before we shut it down entirely. But instinctively, it doesn't feel good.
No.
Let me ask something to you both. So what is to stop some super rich person setting up a new league, a football league?
Say Tony Ross, for example.
Yeah, because Tony's got a lot of money now, got a lot of dollar behind him.
He's absolutely dough up to here.
Minted, absolutely minted.
Evidently, nothing.
What's to stop them setting that up? Setting up 12 franchises in different cities, and then reaching out to the players and saying, hey, do you want to come and play in this league? Okay, if you come and play in this league, it probably means you're not going to get to be able to play for your country anymore and represent at a World Cup or Euro. But if you're cool with that, here's what you can earn.
But that's just players, though, isn't it?
It's contracts. I mean, it's contracts all over the place that stops that.
But the point is what's to stop? What's to stop a footballer from saying, actually, I don't want to play in a FIFA competition. I'd rather play in this new competition.
Well, I don't know at player level, but I do know at club level. All of the Premier League clubs, for example, have signed an agreement that states they can't break away without permission.
Appreciate
so lots of legals, sometimes an adversity to risk, because we've seen tournaments come and go before. I mean, the Club World Cup, for example, has always been a bit of a joke competition. In theory, it should be quite a prestigious thing, but I don't really think it is. So, there's the risk of getting it wrong and just putting your hat sort of in the wrong ring, as it were.
Yeah.
It's just curious to know as to who holds the power as to who can do this and set this up or not, or not set this up. And if it is that all they can actually say is, well, actually, if you do this, we're going to ban your players and they can't play in a World Cup. And basically that's what they're doing, is they're beating them with a stick. what's to stop somebody with a lot of money just going, actually, I'm not bothered about that. It's like having the two different darts associations, isn't it? Both run their own world championships, or even the boxing where they've all, there's different world belts, isn't there? But so there's not one thing. Whereas in football, very much football is all under FIFA's umbrella. And to be perfectly honest, FIFA and UEFA are two of the most corrupt, organizations around. They're two organizations that are supposed to be not-for-profit organizations, yet they are sat with more money in the bank,
absolutely,
than they can possibly ever know what to do with.
Well, you do know where Roy Batara went, don't you? He's now chief treasurer at UEFA.
From poker to football.
By all accounts, the announcement will suggest that the guy, is it Perez, who's the current chief exec of Real Madrid, will be the chairman of this new European Super League, and the likes of Henry and Stan Kroenke and others, Mr. Glazer, for example, they'll be vice chairman or vice presidents of this league. So the suggestion there is that these rich owners have created their own organization, and they're going to run it, so they will negotiate their own broadcast contracts. Reputedly, they're going to pay each team a guaranteed, 300-400 million to take part. And, it's a closed shop, no relegation.
Yeah, I think for me, going back to what Leigh was saying there, when you are right, Leigh, there's nothing stopping. It happens in America in the Major League Soccer, doesn't it? And you get a player to come and change completely different leagues and go and represent a different league. It's about expectations for me. In football, there is an expectation that players move around all the time, and that's what adds to the competitive element of it. They are the asset. They are the entertainment factor of the game. But there's an expectation that those players move within a well-established group of teams, and right the way from the lower pyramids of the table, right the way up to the Premier League, those teams, that the same teams have always been there, the 92 clubs, and with a few in and out from non-league. That's what happens every single season. And there's always been the dream that Yeovil Town in the bottom of the divisions can at some point the stars align, the money's in the right place, and they can meet Manchester United at Old Trafford. And you take some of these long, Liverpool, City, Chelsea, United out of the Premier League. Where's the excitement for the fans? Where's the dream gone? And also I think Gary Neville, who's quite frankly the hero of the people today, he hit the nail on the head for me. It's like, well, who dictates who these six are? And if you're going to say you're going to have a Super League, well, fine. Whoever finishes in the top six this season are the six that get to go, because, Arsenal aren't in the Champions League, United aren't in the Champions League, and it's like Spurs aren't in the Champions League. It's like, why do you get to break away to a Super League just because you've got rich owners and you've been prioritised above other clubs, and you've had the benefit of a lot of very favourable treatment from the football world for the past, since the Premier League started, haven't they? The big six in the Premier League have been treated very well. And for them to turn their back on that and just say, well, now we're going to do it for ourselves, it just stinks.
Well, that's exactly what Warren Brooks in the chat says. Who dictates who gets to be a part of this league? What gives, say, the Arsenal the right to be in and not Leicester? So exactly as you're saying, Natalie, it's exactly that thing. Tristan says, I've got many views on this. Not quite sure how to word it there. He says, one thing I will add, surely the piss poor timing of this announcement is incredibly in the world of this pandemic, with jobs lost and all over the country.
Absolutely.
This year. And actually that's something that Gary Neville was very vocal about, couldn't believe that they were, discussing this now.
Yeah, it's just a very... Do you know what? Leigh and I have talked about this, and I know we haven't. I've probably said this to you, Des, as well. But this pandemic year of football, I've never felt more disengaged with the game that I love as I have this season. And this, for me, just reminds me very sharply that the footballing world is just its own obnoxious little bubble that doesn't live in the real world and just is tainted by just greed and it's just. We're talking today, Des, about how, it's leaving the fans, and, the fans are last people. Has that not already gone? Have we not been at that stage like 5 years ago? I just don't think we're even there.
Listen, I think the single biggest change in football in the last 20, 30 years, which, has been driven by the Premier League as far as English football is concerned, is that football has gone from being a sport and it has become an entertainment business. And it's more akin to the WWF and all of that sort of crap than it, ever has been in the past. It was a sort of an honest game all about, your ability to play on the pitch. Whereas today, it's all about marketing, right? It's about having the biggest fan base, reaching them, engaging with them, basically monetizing your product.
Well, here's an interesting one. So the fans have come out, and their talk is that everyone's against this, right?
Oh, yeah.
What would you say if this goes ahead and it starts next year? I would suggest that most stadiums will be, they'll be 80% full.
Of course,
of these clubs for these games.
What, for the new Super League games? You mean?
Yeah. Fans are very fickle. They all might say, "Oh, I wouldn't go to this" or whatever. But it'll bring, if nothing else, it'll bring new people. I mean, there's Old Trafford has had waiting lists to get tickets for the games for as long as I can remember.
Yeah, same at Burnley. Same.
Yeah. Well, no, but this is the problem. Is there's a demand. There is a demand for these games.
The reality, though, Lee, is
how easy is it to get tickets for Anfield? Des?
Oh, it's very difficult. Very difficult.
Anfield probably could sell out
many
3 times over, probably every.
There's a huge waiting list for season tickets. Yeah. But the reality is that this isn't so much about the fans in the stadium. It's very much about people who are willing to pay TV subscriptions and watch it at home. That's really where the money is. That's where the money is, as opposed to in stadiums. And there isn't a fan alive who wouldn't want to have a season ticket to see Liverpool play at home to Juventus and Inter Milan and Man United and all of that. When it comes down to it, football fans are fickle. We just have to watch it at the end of the day. I don't think there's been any successful narrative of football fans deciding, do you know what, we're going to boycott this for a period of time. I can't recall that ever being a thing.
So how do you feel about your club at the moment, Des?
It's a question I want to both of you, actually.
Yeah, well, crikey, how does one answer that? I think it's a bad decision. I felt it was a really bad decision when at the start of the COVID period, Liverpool came out and put several hundred members of staff on furlough, right? I rallied against that, and I thought that was horrible, and they figured it out and they turned direction pretty quickly, and they decided, no, we're going to pay these staff, we're going to keep them on ourselves. I think this is a bad decision. I think it's a bad decision, but I haven't heard what the details of these, this proposed league is. I really haven't heard anything other than a lot of sort of, secondhand stuff on Twitter today. I'd like to hear the details. I'd like somebody to confirm that there's going to be no promotion or relegation, or, I'd like to understand a bit more about that. So, I'm not anti-change. I'm not anti-evolution and improvement, but I am anti-destroying the national game for the purpose of rich owners. They can, piss right off if that's the plan.
There was talk earlier on today that the question of whether was it a case of, they would just play this rather than playing the European competition, and so they would carry on playing their own domestic league on the weekend, so to speak, and then these would replace the kind of the European games, and it would be a fixed, however many in this league, and it would work like that. I don't know how true that is, but I'm similar to you in you need to see what the detail is before you can make a fair judgment.
Yeah, that's fair.
But at the same time, it just feels, timing feels awful, but it also does feel a little bit like if UEFA were going to announce updates to the Champions League tomorrow, this is a bit of a power play to get out there ahead of it with what they want to do.
It has to be said, everything that we've heard to date of the UEFA Champions League plans, and again, we're basing this on subjective sort of discussion, sounds pants as well. And if what Lineker said earlier on Twitter, it sounds like a league of, everybody's going to play 10 games, and you might end up playing some teams in the group and not other teams in the group, and you're going to end up with a winner.
It's horrible.
It sounds like the International
It
Champions
really is.
Cup, which was played in America over the last few seasons as a preseason. It sounds very like that. Now, I can't imagine that that's what UEFA are going to come out with, but that's what I've heard it's going to be like. So we have to hear. But it might be that, Gary Lineker is spot on with this, and that, in fact, this is just a replication of the Project Blue Sky or whatever it was that these same football clubs come out with a year ago that was shot down immediately, whereby they're trying to create space to negotiate because they don't want to appear in a Champions League that they have absolutely no say in terms of how it's going to run. So who knows? The next 24 hours is likely to be interesting, though.
What I would say is I don't see how a Super League, if they're calling it like that, works when you've got 2 teams from Manchester, 2 teams from London, 2 teams from Milan, 2 teams from Madrid.
2 teams from Liverpool. Oh, no. Sorry, carry on.
I was going to say, actually, I'm pretty sure that Des's heart won't be bleeding at this, but, you look at some of these things. Everton are about to invest 500 million on a new stadium with the intention that they're going to play in Champions League and that they are going to still compete and try and get into that top 6 of the Premier League. It is. You never know. Burnley might get into Europe every season.
Burnley, you're about to sell some of your key players to invest in some youth players because you've got an old squad, haven't you?
Don't even get me started about that nonsense.
Undersoil heating.
Yeah.
When we've just been taken over by rich owners as well, I'm like, hang on a minute, did I miss something here? Martin Tyler just what?
Hold on, Natalie. There's rich owners and there's rich owners, right?
Yeah, no, we're not in that second bracket. We're in the. When I say rich owners, it's comparable to what we've had at Burnley.
I must admit, I do actually think in general talk on football commentary and analysts. I think lockdown is starting to take its toll on some of them because I've sat and listened to some games in the past few weeks.
Some nonsense.
I mean, to be fair, Martin Keown very rarely talks a lot of sense, but you listen to some of it and you go, "What are you talking about?" You're contradicting yourself from sentence to sentence.
I know.
What are you doing?
Yeah, the quicker that this season finishes, the better for me.
Amen.
For sure. And on that note, I'm going to leave you, gentlemen, because I have another prior engagement. I'm afraid I need to jump off, and that feels like a good
prior engagement at 11 p.m. on a Sunday night. That is dedication to
some
what
I can say, just as Natalie is going to depart, we can confirm that Felipe Henrique Ludovico Santos from Brazil has won the main event.
Well done, you.
So very well done to him. Tony Ross finished 6th. Des, which I don't think
Lee, just send him the money, send him the keys to the APAT vault.
That'll probably be enough for him to now. He's probably got enough for the Super League investment that he wanted now, so he'll be okay. Natalie, thank you ever so much.
You're
for
welcome.
joining us.
Yeah. My pleasure. Thanks,
Fantastic.
guys.
Thanks
Have
a lot,
good
Natalie.
night.
Bye. See you soon, Natalie. Bye-bye.
Oh, there we go. We lose Natalie, but she was entertaining, as she tends to be. We still have her number, right, Lee? She hasn't changed it yet, has she?
No, and she's contracted to the Orbit Extra anyway. She might not have realised she's signed a contract, but does she know there's no relegation? Yeah, I definitely know relegation. No, it's
once you're in, you're in. It's like the mafia, right? Once you're in
for life,
you're in.
Yeah.
Right, listen.
But it's been a proper weird day, I must admit, with this breaking news, and we are just waiting to hear whether what the clubs have got to say, because ultimately that's what we've not heard from yet. And it's all well and good this being, well, we spoke before the show, didn't we? Was it leaked or how did it get released? It's very difficult because it's all this information's come out, but from nobody seems to know exactly who from or where it's all come from yet. So
correct.
until the clubs, and if it is that actually it is the owners of the clubs effectively are creating this new organization to run this league, well, that's ultimately what it is.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to have investment or backing, but that could be debt finance backing that. They're not quite, they haven't confirmed exactly who, but there was a couple of banks mentioned in that as well. So we'll see how it pans out.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting 24 hours, and I'm interested to hear what the UEFA announcement with regards to the Champions League is, because you have to say the Champions League's been a magnificent success. Premier League's been a magnificent success. There's absolutely no guarantee that a new European Super League would be a tremendous success. Those have been, but there's absolutely no guarantees that another would be.
I think the reality of it is, though, it would be. I don't, and this is the thing. It's very quick for fans and the media to be up in arms about it, but the reality of it is that if you got 12, 16, of the top teams in Europe playing each other in a league format week in, week out over a season, people will want to watch that. There's no doubt. There is no doubt people will want to watch that.
Well, listen,
now,
there can't be 12 of them.
The problem is
there's going to need to be more, Lee, right?
Well, this is the thing is obviously you get the initial people in it. It's like anything. It's like the US soccer league, which they'll add on and start off with 16, bolt on another couple, and then Beckham's given a franchise and he can get involved in it. Ultimately, that's where a lot of this is driven from, isn't it? They don't have promotion or relegation. It's fixed. It's like the NFL, American football. That's the same teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And Scottish football to a degree. It's a small division. They play each other more often. It's like that can quickly become boring. The special nature of playing.
But you only have to look at a number of the when we've spoken about this on the show before. You look at a number of the European leagues. I mean, Juventus are having a shocking season in Serie A, but they've won 8 on the bounce.
Scudettas, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the La Liga, Barcelona and Real Madrid. I mean, you might have the odd team that have won it in the past 20 years, but that's it. Bayern Munich, how many are they ridiculous. Now in a row?
They've had about 8 as well, and they're looking clear for 9.
Yeah, and again, you look at the Portuguese league. It's not for example, PSG are dominating the French league and have done for years and years.
Well, you look at the Premier League. United haven't won it since 2013. Leicester have won it recently. Liverpool have won it recently. It's like it's a league where teams have a chance.
When was the last time somebody retained the Premier League?
Oh, honestly, can't remember. I assume it was City, but honestly, I couldn't put a year on it.
I'm assuming City have done back-to-backs, but it's only happened probably once in the last.
Oh, no. They must have done it in 17 and 18, or 17, 18, 18, 19, because they did 199 points, didn't they, back-to-back, or 197, and then Liverpool came up with 99 from memory.
Okay.
But it's a very rare.
It's probably the last time before that it probably happened would have been United.
Yeah.
Which would have been a good 10. Well, no, probably longer than that we did back to backs. So yeah, it doesn't happen. It's a competitive. Yeah. It's a competitive league. But
so Triplin is saying, listen, football is literally icons to you young kids, even more so now. So look at Marcus Rashford. I agree, people will pay to watch regardless of, which league the team is playing in. And Brooksy, and he should be congratulated, Norwich won. They got promoted yesterday. They're likely to win the championship. Goes on to say Norwich got promoted yesterday. And as much as it's been an enjoyable season, I can't say I'm looking forward to a competition that just feels skewed in favour of the big clubs. He's right. He's going to come up. It's going to be a tough season. There have been some exceptions. Sheffield United, for example, last season had a great season. Back up. Look what happened this season. They're already gone. So, yeah. But, smaller clubs and less fancied clubs have a better chance in the Premier League than I think they would have in La Liga or the Bundesliga or Serie A. Right, Lee.
There are plenty of sports, though, Des, that are ring-fenced. Formula One.
Oh, God, yeah. Absolutely.
Formula One, perfect example. It's not a case of if the best teams in Formula 2 get promoted into Formula 1 and they get to there is plenty of sports where it is very ring fence and it's not a level playing field, and anybody that claims it is lying. Unfortunately, that's just the way of the world, but we will see what happens. It's certainly going to be interesting.
Sure. Lee, now unless, and you may tell me we have, unless we've got major items to sort tonight, I was going to bring this to a close. If, however, we do have major items to sort and we want to continue viewing for the next however long to close up tonight's tourneys, then we can carry on. What do we What do you
No,
think?
well, the situation tonight is going to be, so to say, the main event is done, and well done to all of those that cashed in that. There is no real way that Mr. Wigglesworth is going to get caught on the leaderboard. He's got a stonking 281 points for the week. Second best player at the moment is Gary Young with 127. I mean, it's just a phenomenal performance from Peter this week. Just to put it in context, Des. So he's got 7 cashes this week out of 16 tournaments.
What a race.
Tony last week had 7 cashes as well. Tony banked 224 points last week, and Peter's done 281 this week. I mean,
Wow.
That's just phenomenal.
That must be a record haul, is it? Since we started leaderboards?
It is. Yeah, it
Wow.
is. Yeah, it's a phenomenal performance. I mean, so the leaders before that, Gary Lippman won the week before that with 218. Tim Rutquist the week before that with 180. Peter Monroe with 180. So just absolutely phenomenal scoring. Really, really impressive. So that'll be that. So I don't think there's anyone else that's going to be caught. We'll obviously have the top 5. I'll pick up the bonus tickets as well, but I'll update all that once it's all finished. So
perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I think what we're going to do, guys, is we're probably going to call it slightly early tonight, slightly earlier than we normally would, because it's been a bit of a tough week. And while Lee and I could carry on talking about Netflix and this, that, and the other, honestly, it just doesn't feel. We've covered off the 2 big stories of the night. It just doesn't feel right. So I'm going to say we're going to call it. Hope you all have a great week. And well done, of course, to this week's winners. We're obviously going to have a little cry secretly with regards to Tony Ross's tickets. Right, but we'll do that privately. We're not going to, we're not going to share that. Lee and I will be back next Sunday night. Hopefully we'll have another guest on, and we will go from there. But hopefully we'll all be in a slightly better place in another week's time. So without further ado, Lee, unless you've got anything to add.
No, have a good week, guys. We will see you
week.
next Sunday.
Fabulous. Okay, well, we will play you out with this.